And I think I'm really excited that AbilityNet and BarrierBreak continue to do this and have the support of IAAP. I am missing my co-host today, Mark Wilcock. So, that is there. But I have with me Samantha Evans. But before I get to Samantha Evans, I just thought we'd do a little bit of housekeeping. So we are on Zoom. Captions are provided through Zoom for you. We also have a live captioner available. Christy is with us today to do live captioning. So if you need support, we do have a challenge, I think, when we go into rooms and we do breakout sessions where the captioner doesn't always follow you. So there might be that challenge. And you might have to swap, I think, to auto captioning, or Christy, I'm not sure whether you can follow or we can send you into that particular room. So we will figure that out. While you're here, please feel free to introduce yourself using the chat function, as well as when you're in the room. So please don't feel shy and sit, behind your screen. We'd love to get to know you. I'm sure everybody is here to get to know each other. We are from different parts of the world, all of us, and it'd be great to see that, conversation start and maybe make few friends and colleagues that we find here. And at the end of the session, we will be providing a feedback form, and that will be shared post the webinar. So look forward to that. With that, I am going to just walk you through the program. So we're going to do a welcome. We're then going to talk to Mark Wilcock from Atos. We'll speak to him for about 10 minutes. We then start the exciting part, not to say that Mark is not exciting, and the conversation about apprenticeship, but we will then go into a 10-minute networking. We'll come back and give you time to ask Mark questions, as well as we've got Samantha Evans from IAAP, and we'll have about 15 minutes for that. And then we go back out for another networking session. So if you haven't met the people, in the first time round or had time to speak to them, hopefully you'll connect with another set of them at that point, and we'll move on from there. So with that, as I've said, I'm Shilpi Kapoor. I am the CEO of BarrierBreak. I'm super excited to be here. I think AbilityNet is a leading accessibility nonprofit out of UK, and BarrierBreak is a leading accessibility consulting firm out of India. We've come together to do this, and I think the first time, Mark and I spoke about it, it was just, right for everybody that we joined forces and made this happen. And with me, I've got Samantha Evans. A lot of you might know if you're following IAAP or thinking of certification. She's the woman behind certification. And Samantha, do you want to say a couple of words?
Thank you all for joining us today. I'm really excited to support the program, both from our India chapter and UK chapters, and for the work that Atos has done on the apprenticeship program. It was exciting to learn with them as they built and developed the program. If you have questions about certification, I'm here to answer those questions when we get to that point of the program. So thank y'all for joining us. Lovely to see names of folks that I know either in person or remotely through our work together. So on with the program.
Thank you, Sam. And I'm sure a lot of you have been excited to see that IAAP now uses Credly as a badge that you can showcase your knowledge with and the hard work that you've put into certifications. Samantha, thank you for doing that. I think that is a fabulous step by IAAP to promote accessibility, and I'm going to let you talk about that a little later.
Yeah.
Fabulous. So with that, Mark, I think it's time to put you on the spot, and I'm going to stop sharing and I am going to let you share because I know you have a deck. So Mark is, global accessibility lead at Atos. And Mark is going to be presenting on the apprenticeship program. Mark, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, like you said earlier on. We're super excited to hear this because I think space of accessibility is so new in the world that we need to be able to build skill set. And I think that is one of the biggest gaps that all of us are facing. And that's why the opportunity, to have something like IAAP within the industry, and obviously see the amazing work that you all are trying to do in the UK and see how we can replicate that. So over to you, Mark, and we'd love for you to introduce yourself and then all the amazing stuff you're doing.
Thank you for the introduction, and it's great to speak to so many people today. Today I'm going to be speaking about the Accessibility Specialist Apprenticeship Standard that Atos and a number of other companies have developed over the last few years and is now kind of live and being used in the UK to train new individuals into the accessibility sector. So just a very short introduction to myself. My name is Mark Wilcock. I'm the Global Accessibility Academy and Accessibility Knowledge Lead at Atos. I've got Sipois from IAAP. I'm an ex-contributing member for the WCAG working group, and I'm the co-chair for the development of the Digital Accessibility Specialist Apprenticeship Standard that I'll be talking about alongside Neil Milliken also from Atos. So just jumping on to kind of the rationale behind apprenticeships and kind of a bit about how they work here in the UK. So why did we choose an apprenticeship when we were looking at kind of this skills gap that we have? So it's really difficult to recruit experienced talent in the accessibility sphere in the UK. There's a lot of opportunities, but not a lot of experienced practitioners. So it was really an opportunity to expand the talent pool, not just for ourselves at Atos, but also for the whole industry in general. And it enables us and other companies to invest in the future of talent and career progression for individuals. So just kind of a general bit of facts around apprenticeships. So actually, really interestedly, a lot of people presume the highest kind of demographic that are taking apprenticeships are like school leavers, so kind of 16 to 18-year-olds looking to kind of take their first step into professional careers. But actually, in fact, the highest demographic is actually 25 plus, so individuals who are over 25. So apprenticeships not only provide the opportunity for someone to enter the field, but they also provide the opportunity to either reskill or certify somebody in a sector such as accessibility. And this is obviously across all apprenticeships in general. So it's great to attract great talent, but also to retain great talent, because it shows you're investing not only in the individual, but also their success, their future, and their kind of certification that isn't just certified within your organization, but is recognized externally as kind of other IAAP certifications. So how apprenticeships work is it amalgamates on the job and like classroom-led or tutor-led learning sessions. So how an apprenticeship is brought out is you'll have the classroom learning. So that's very kind of structured learning by kind of somebody who's already experienced in that field. So let's take the example of web standards in accessibility. So you'd have classroom-led sessions. It could be virtual, it could be in a physical location, and then that's then supported by on-the-job learning. So that enables the company to really drive that learning that individual's done, but in the specific way that company actually completes that task. So, the WCAG or the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, out there that everybody uses the same guidelines, but how companies use those is slightly different, and how they test those is slightly different. So it enables that kind of great kind of molding of the employee to, work in your set ways in the company. And then obviously that all comes together to train the individual. So one question was around who's kind of been involved to this point. So how it works is there's kind of 3 or 4 different kind of sets of individuals who are together create a standard in the UK. So the first kind of one is the governmental bodies. So because apprenticeships are partially funded in certain circumstances by the UK government, we needed to involve the Department for Education, and then also kind of the other body, the Institute for Apprenticeships, to follow their kind of rigorous implementation steps to ensure that we abide by their requirements. You then had the Trailblazer Group. So this is a group of organizations who came together because they saw a need for this in the field. They had a passion to create it. So we had Microsoft, RNIB, IAAP, Hex Productions, Barclays, AbilityNet, Shell, and ourselves at Atos all came together to kind of mold what we thought would be a great standard to drive this change. And then the final group of organizations is around the certification bodies and also the learning providers, because without those, we won't be able to deliver the apprenticeship standard that we envisaged. So QA, AIM, UCN, and BCS. BCS being the British Computer Society. So what actually happened in the end? So we do now have certified training providers for the standard. So we have a company called Purple Beard who are looking to deliver the standard this year as a training provider, and the accreditation will be provided by BCS for the actual kind of stamp on the certificate to show that what the apprentice has learned is certified and abide by the standard. So just kind of a very quick run through of how we got to this point. Not in too much detail. So we formed the Trailblazer groups. That's that group of organizations who are passionate about creating the apprenticeship standard. And I've just mentioned a few of them before. We then looked at the occupational proposal. So what we needed to do there was break down what does a typical accessibility specialist in a company complete on a daily basis. So what are the duties they might complete? And obviously, what is completed by somebody in Atos might be totally different to what somebody completes at IAAP, AbilityNet. So what we needed to do was come together to agree on a set number of duties. So what are the most common things people do, or what are the most common things that people in this sector complete? And we had to then draw or average out the most common ones and remove some of the specialist ones, because realistically this standard, one key thing that the governing bodies require is that it's transferable, because we don't want to provide skills just to take people into Atos. We want to provide skills so those individuals have the opportunity to transfer companies. Hopefully they stay with the company that puts them through the apprenticeship, but the opportunity is there for them to move, but also have all the knowledge required to be successful in this sector. We then went through to developing the occupational standard. So what that really means is we broke down those duties. So say if the duty was auditing a website against digital standards, what we then needed to do was break down into the KSBs. So that's the knowledge, skills, and behaviors that would be required to deliver that duty. So for that duty, a knowledge could be around, WCAG or, a similar digital accessibility standard. A skill could be around testing or auditing. So how you take a standard and how you actually test to those points. And then the behavior could be team working, because often, projects are delivered by a team. So it's important that you can actually work in a team environment to complete that. So that's the kind of process that we had to do for every duty we identified. And I think there were around 20 duties by the end of it. So we broke down all those knowledge, skills, and behaviors, and there might be multiple knowledge, or skills or behaviors linked to each duty, because some are more complex than others. And then what we needed to do was develop the endpoint assessment. So the best way to look at that is basically it's the exam. So how do we certify that an apprentice that's gone through this standard that's been delivered by a training provider is to a standard that all the organizations involved are happy to say, what, we agree that they are at a level that we can all accept. And then the final part's the approvals. So filling out all the paperwork, getting all of those kind of stakeholders engaged from the governing bodies and training providers to come together and sit down and start delivering it. So we are starting to deliver this year. The standard was approved, I think, towards the end or mid of last year. But because of how apprenticeships work in the UK, there's a number of set kind of intakes that most training providers complete. So we are now at a point to deliver. So if you are in the UK and you are looking to take them on, there are training providers that are delivering this year, and you can reach out to me or them directly, and I'm sure they'll happily share details. So just kind of jumping back slightly, just looking at kind of what job roles, what are the study areas that we will, which are covered by the standard. So there's pieces around accessibility fundamentals. So that's kind of looking at what is accessibility, what are disabilities, what are the language use around all of that, and also kind of general facts and figures, maybe legislation that tie into kind of the whole kind of deliverable. Accessibility development. So what I do is I caveat that quickly by saying, anybody going through this standard will not be a full stack developer. They're not going to be creating full websites. This is more having the knowledge to technically analyze a product or a service to give critical feedback or something that a developer could go implement. Accessible design, so looking at wireframes, color palettes, all of that kind of stuff to make sure that stuff is designed accessible from the start, because that's the best way of doing everything. Accessibility testing, so again looking at WCAG, the standards, how you audit, and assistive technology, how you actually test with those. accessibility user support, so supporting users of assistive technologies for either your organization or customers' organizations, and some kind of technical guidance around there, and then common business practices, because some people who might be taking apprenticeships might not have ever had a job before, so it's important you teach those core skills. So using Outlook, for example, calendars, doing emails. It might not be the most interesting stuff, but it's really important that everybody does it properly. So how does that link into job roles? So the kind of job roles that we focused on was auditing. So looking at applications, websites against set digital standards. What I'd say is this is a digital standard or area, so it's not anything to do with kind of buildings or anything along those lines. Just digital. Training and guidance. There is a piece around assistive technology and how users could use that to assist. And then document specialists, so looking at kind of how you remediate a document for accessibility, Word, PDF, PowerPoints, those kind of things. So could look at that piece as well. And then technical support, like I mentioned before, there'll be some end user support tied into that. That's the end of my presentation. But what I'd say is to go on slightly further, because I know there's quite a lot of people not from the UK in this call. All the standard, all the duties, all of the breakdown of what we've developed is open source. Free to use online. So if you actually Google digital accessibility specialist apprenticeship standard, it should come up, and it should be on the IFA, the Institute for Apprenticeships website, and you'll be able to download it all or view it in the web form. What I'd say is the training content isn't there. So some people misunderstand what's there. There's no training content, so there's no PowerPoint slides to teach any of this, but there's the framework to teach somebody it. So there's the key points that you need to take away and develop the content around to deliver part or all of that. And it's, again, you can bite size it if you want. So if you're really just looking for somebody to provide technical support, you could take those parts and deliver that yourself, or reach out to a training provider to deliver that on your behalf. And they should be able to understand the points that are there and create a program that's great value for yourself. So by all means, go use that. If you are in the UK, like I say, it is live now. So if you are wanting to take apprentices on this year, you'd have to be quick, because the intake is in a few months, I believe, because school leavers are just getting their results around now, and they'll be deciding what they might want to do with their careers. But yep, hopefully I've answered the questions that people asked before the session, but if not, I'm open for any questions.
I think you did, Mark. We'll come back to you for questions after our networking break. Thank you for that amazing presentation. It made me think, I wish I had people that came out of the apprenticeship program that I could go out and hire today, rather than do the hard work inside the organization. So hats off to everybody putting this together. But we'll come back to you in 10 minutes with Q&A from the team, as well as some questions from me and Sam joining the conversation. Before that, everybody, I hope you're excited. Sophie is going to be sending us off into breakout rooms. We will go in for about 10 minutes, and we will then be back here for having a conversation, just so that to get you as a point of starting. Maybe you can ask questions like, how did you get trained in accessibility, and get to know about it from each. You're already in, interestingly, you never went to a breakout, so that's the good thing. Hi, Adish will be here. Hi, everybody else is coming back in.
Zoom meetings. Video settings. Close. Open.
While we start coming back, if you have any questions that you want to ask Mark, can I request everybody to please post them in the chat window, and I will look for those, or for Samantha. So Mark and Samantha, can I have both of you on video? It would be great to have both of you there. And by any chance, can we put a spotlight on them, Sophie? After using Teams, I've forgotten what Zoom does.
Let me try and work it out.
Okay, if not, so explained a lot about your apprenticeship program, and would love to hear Atos itself, how many people have gone through the apprenticeship program for you all, and how are you all looking at spreading the word on that?
So in terms of kind of numbers that have come through Atos, so at the moment we've had about, I think, 4 apprenticeship cohorts. So we normally run on a kind of a 2-yearly cycle. So when one group of apprentices finish, we take on another group. I was part of the first group 8 years ago, coming through a digital apprenticeship standard, and we then had to add on all of this additional accessibility knowledge. So it was more of a software development role with accessibility added on. We've done about, like I say, 4 cohorts. We aimed for, I think it was 5 in the first one. We then did a cohort of 4, and then another one of about 4 or 5. So we try and take on 4 or 5 apprentices because we think that it's great for them to have the ability to kind of bounce ideas off each other and kind of have that bit of community around completing the apprenticeship as well, that support network.
Fabulous. So Samantha, I know you and Mark, IAAP and Atos and everybody have been working together. How are you looking at this, leaning into the WAS certification and, the IAAP world?
So I think that the trailblazer group of everyone that came together to build all of those key qualifications and standards was really very thoughtful. And I think, Mark, I think the apprenticeship scheme team were very specific in wanting for them to understand, them not being accessibility professionals. We're very extracting on being sure that they understood the value and that those skills could be achieved. So, which was, I thought, very good on them. But I think that if someone comes through a 2-year time frame on the apprenticeship, that would be somebody that would be qualified, likely to be able to sit for WAS and the web accessibility specialist. While we do require 3 to 5 years experience, I'd happily be comfortable if somebody has successfully completed with a business the apprenticeship program to consider them, even though it's only 2 years, because I think the structure and the content we know aligns very closely with those tenets, and it's applied knowledge, not just concepts. So I'm excited to see any structured career pathway that's well designed, that allows people the opportunity to learn firsthand about doing digital accessibility in person, not just in a course, and from a business that does that as part of their core tenets of who they are. So all of it is appealing, and I hope that there will be more participation. Atos has been great, but that's been an Atos initiative for those internships. But for the apprenticeship itself, I hope to be able to see, I guess next year we would see the first group come out. Mark, is that true? Since it went live last year, but did they have a group in last year that would come out next year, or?
So the first cohort going through will be this year. So the first people graduating the scheme will be in like 2024. Okay. Or just before, maybe in 2023. But towards the latter stage. But I totally agree with what you mentioned again before. Obviously yourselves specifically, but IAAP, when we were creating this, your support, we heavily mapped to CPAC and WAS knowledge, the body of knowledge. So realistically, the apprentice coming out would be able to sit part of that. And I know that was something that the Department of Education looked at quite strictly, because we needed to map to a professional body to show that there's a group of professionals in the area, and I think they're the 2 ones that we kind of targeted or mapped to most.
Yeah, and those, for those who may not be familiar, the way the certifications are developed is there is a group of people who do the work, who say, I do this work, or I manage people who do this work. These are the tasks, skills, and activities that this professional would do every day, regularly, or very frequently. And then a survey goes out to a few thousand people to confirm, yes, all the time, frequently, occasionally. And so those skills that are listed in the certifications then can lend themselves to what was required in the apprenticeship scheme for activities and knowledge.
That is true. So I see Gizzy is saying in the chat window that she'd like to see, would like to see more higher education institutions offering to internal staff and current students. I just actually met somebody in another room who I think the person works with AbilityNet, Akash, I think, and he's come through and he's doing an internship with AbilityNet, but he got to know about it through his uni. And I think that is exactly where we need to start. We need to start early rather than late, per se. But I think there's so much more, Mark, that goes into putting an apprenticeship program together, right? Because people need to get hands-on experience, right? And you need to find them projects to work with and align with the process and the manager. And how's your experience been in that? Because at BarrierBreak, we do a large amount of training, practice, assessment of our people, and it takes a lot of work, right? So how are you all, managing that, and specifically the part of actual live projects? How do you all see that come in? So
I think with the apprenticeship that we deliver and how we kind of deliver our training, there's the opportunity to what is often called as front loading. So what that enables you to do is an apprenticeship needs to be 20% like off the job learning. So basically with a tutor in a classroom online or dedicated learning sessions, and then the other 80% is them either learning on the job or delivering something for you internally or for a customer. So how that works is you can either front load it, so you can give a higher proportion of an individual's time to learning and dedicated to completing maybe a week of learning rather than 1 day a week, and that can give the knowledge for then that individual to then apply the following weeks. So if, for example, you front loaded the parts around auditing web standards, you could then realistically give them tasks in the following weeks around that, so they could actually get the hands-on experience. And I think that's one of the great powers of apprenticeships, is that it doesn't just give the individual a learning. So you're not going to other educational routes like a university where you're sat in a classroom learning, but you're never really applying in an actual professional environment. That's where apprenticeships, I think, shine. They let you kind of actually nearly instantly apply those skills, so you actually learn how to use them, because there's often quite a difference between learning and actually doing something. And I think that's something that's really useful. And here we front load a lot of our training and then give projects that are related to those subjects to the individuals.
That's brilliant. So I think Anna in the chat is saying completely agree, accessibility is as important as the next framework. And Neil has a question. Do you have to have a set tool set for these apprenticeships, or can you be flexible on the tools you use for accessibility testing?
So related to Neil's question, how the apprenticeship is structured has to be kind of very, very open, because these are standards that are going to remain unchanged. I think it's for 3 to 4 years. We have to review it every 3-4 years, or sooner if somebody makes a suggestion that something's totally outdated with the change of technologies. But in terms of what's specified in the standard, there are no direct tools quoted or direct standards quoted. So when I'm using WCAG, for example, that's just to maybe link to the knowledge that we provide, but that could be anything for any organization. So I'm not sure where you work, Neil, but if your company uses totally a different standard and you can find a training provider to deliver the scheme and use your standard, then that's totally fine and they can still pass. It's literally more about the core being able to kind of investigate a standard and understand how you'd audit to it, rather than using specific things. So the flexibility is totally up to the company and the training providers and whatnot that they use.
That's great. And Samantha, I think that also aligns with IAAP's thought process that any tools, any testing, we don't box people in and they can use their free flow approach of what their organization requires. Would that be right?
It is. And I think the thing that we try to remind people is that you can use whichever automated tools you prefer, but understanding the limitations of automated tools and the requirements of manual usability, user accessibility testing is what really makes it plausible to be good assessment and testing. So, yeah.
True. So I think with that, we're going to go out into another breakout room. I hope both of you are also going to go out with us so that we can talk to some people. Sophie, another round, please. And I think let's continue on how you're getting trained. What are your experiences? How are you looking at certification? And those are the conversations that we can have when we go out in the breakout. Thanks, Sophie, again. If you can see us out. Thank you. I hope everybody enjoyed. Okay, we have more people yet to come back. Sophie, have we closed all the rooms? There, everybody's back.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. So Mark, as well as Sam, can I please have you on video again? That would be lovely. So I think this was a very refreshing conversation today. It's been great to have Mark talk to us about apprenticeship, and Samantha to also lean in on the IAAP side of things. So parting words from both of you.